The morning light filtered through the massive windows of Terminal B, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Sarah shifted the weight of her 2-year-old son Tommy on her hip, feeling the familiar ache in her lower back from carrying him and their overstuffed diaper bag. The airport was already buzzing with early travelers, their voices echoing off the high ceiling like distant thunder. Tommy had been fussy since they arrived an hour early for their flight. To visit his grandmother, Sarah had hoped the extra time would help them settle in, maybe grab a quiet breakfast before boarding. But Tommy seemed determined to make their morning as challenging as possible. He squirmed in her arms, reaching for everything he couldn't have, whimpering when she redirected his attention. "Mama down," Tommy said, his small hands pushing against her chest. "Not right now, sweetheart," Sarah whispered, bouncing him gently. "We need to wait here for our airplane." She glanced around the gate area, noticing how other passengers were already looking in their direction. An elderly woman in a pearl necklace shook her head disapprovingly. A businessman in an expensive suit checked his watch with obvious irritation. Sarah felt her cheeks grow warm with embarrassment. Tommy's whimpering grew louder, escalating into proper crying. His little face turned red as tears streamed down his cheeks. Sarah tried everything she could think of, offering him crackers, showing him pictures on her phone, singing softly in his ear. Nothing worked. If anything, he seemed to cry harder. "Mama, home," Tommy sobbed, his voice breaking Sarah's heart. "I know, baby. I know you want to go home," she murmured, her own voice thick with exhaustion. "But we have to see Grandma first. Remember, she's waiting for us." The businessman stood up abruptly, making a show of moving to a seat farther away. The elderly woman clicked her tongue and turned her back to them. Sarah felt the familiar weight of judgment settling on her shoulders like a heavy blanket. She had experienced this before: the looks, the whispered comments, the assumption that she was somehow failing as a mother, because she couldn't instantly quiet her distressed child. A gate agent approached with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Ma'am, is everything all right? We're getting some complaints about the noise level." Sarah's face burned with shame. She looked around at the other passengers, some of whom were now openly staring. A few had their phones out, probably recording the scene for social media. Her hands trembled as she adjusted Tommy's position, trying to calm him with gentle shushing sounds. "I'm sorry," Sarah said quietly, her voice barely audible over Tommy's cries. "He's just tired and overwhelmed. I'm trying to perhaps you could take him somewhere else until he settles down," the gate agent suggested, still wearing that professional smile. Sarah nodded, feeling tears prick at her own eyes. She had paid for these seats, had every right to be here, but the weight of everyone's disapproval was crushing. Tommy continued to sob, his little body shaking with the force of his emotions. "I'm sorry, we'll leave," Sarah said, gathering their belongings with one arm while balancing Tommy with the other. She turned toward the corridor, unsure where she would go or how she would manage to calm Tommy in an unfamiliar place. The diaper bag slipped from her shoulder, spilling some of its contents onto the floor. As she bent to pick up Tommy's favorite stuffed elephant, she felt completely overwhelmed. That's when she heard a gentle voice behind her. "Excuse me, Miss." Sarah turned to see a distinguished older man in a navy suit. His hair was silver at the temples, and his eyes held a warmth that immediately put her at ease. She recognized him vaguely. He had been sitting a few rows away, working quietly on his laptop. "I couldn't help but notice you and your little one are having a rough morning," he said kindly. "I'm David, by the way." Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm Sarah, and this is Tommy. I'm so sorry about the noise. We were just leaving." David held up a gentle hand. "There's no need to apologize or leave. May I share something with you?" Sarah nodded, still bouncing Tommy, who had quieted slightly at the sound of a new voice. "I have 3 children of my own, all grown now," David continued, "and I remember many mornings just like this one. Travel is hard on little ones. They don't understand why their routine is disrupted, why they can't run around freely, why everything feels different." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small toy airplane. "I actually keep this with me for occasions just like this. My youngest used to love airplanes, and this little guy got us through many difficult flights." Tommy's eyes immediately fixed on the toy, his crying reducing to soft sniffles. David held it out, making gentle whooshing sounds as he moved it through the air. "Would you like to hold the airplane, Tommy?" David asked. Tommy reached for it with chubby fingers, his distress forgotten in his fascination with the toy. Sarah felt her shoulders relax for the first time all morning. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know how much this means to me." David smiled. "I do know, actually. I remember feeling like the world was judging my parenting every time one of my children had a meltdown in public. But here's what I learned over the years: most of that judgment exists only in our own minds. The people who matter, the people who have been parents themselves, they understand." He gestured toward the gate area. "Look around now. Sarah turned and was surprised to see that several passengers were now smiling in their direction. A young mother with a sleeping baby gave her an encouraging thumbs up. An older gentleman nodded approvingly at Tommy's fascination with the toy airplane. Sometimes we assume the worst about people's reactions, David said gently, but most humans are naturally drawn to help when they see someone struggling. We just have to give them the chance. As if to prove his point, the elderly woman in pearls approached them. Sarah tensed, expecting another complaint, but instead, the woman reached into her purse and pulled out a small package of goldfish crackers. For the little one, she said with a genuine smile. My great-grandson loves these. They always seem to help during long waits. Tommy looked up from his toy airplane, his face now completely calm. He took a cracker and said, "Thank you," in his sweet, toddler voice. The woman's face lit up. Oh, what good manners. How old is he? 2.5. Sarah replied, still amazed by the transformation in atmosphere. Such a wonderful age. The woman said, enjoy every moment, dear. They grow up so fast. As the boarding announcement began, David helped Sarah gather their belongings. Tommy clutched his new toy airplane, making quiet flying sounds as they prepared to board. Keep the airplane, David said as they stood in line. And remember, you're doing better than you think you are. Parenting is the hardest job in the world, and you're handling it with grace. Sarah felt tears in her eyes again, but this time, they were tears of gratitude. Sometimes kindness came from the most unexpected places, reminding her that she wasn't alone in this journey of raising a child. As they boarded the plane, Tommy waved his toy airplane at the other passengers, receiving smiles and waves in return. The flight to visit Grandma was going to be just fine after all.